Ian, are you on, Ian? Oh, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you doing?
Drunk. I've just had to turn it the opposite way around. I think that should hold. If it doesn't and it falls off, obviously correct it. How's things anyway?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm really good, really good. So, for those of you that obviously think right what it's all about, Theresa very kindly has joined us at the PAA for one of our modules, which is going to be part of the membership for the Professional Aesthetic Associates. And I suppose what I wanted to do is do a quick kind of question and answer, run through some of the myths of the plasma, and then just really find out on a whole what plasma is all about, really, because I think there's certainly some pictures out there you'll see of really, really poor work that kind of scares you away from it, and I suppose it's understanding why. I love that. So anybody that has any questions as we go along, feel free to obviously chuck it in the comments and we'll come back to you. And then between now and then we'll kind of run through a little bit more and go through some. So in terms of obviously plasma and fibroblasts, can you explain a bit more what plasma actually does?
Sure. So we have a pen. We've got a German pen, and what that pen does is it converts electrical energy into electrostatic energy. And what that does is it emits, like, there's ionizations of gases, which are nitrogen and oxygen within the atmosphere. They combine and combust, and that creates an electric lightning bolt, as it were. Now that energy, that lightning bolt, hits the skin and it sublimates the skin. It tightens it on interaction with the skin. It's not the probe that touches the skin, it's the actual bolt of electricity. So that sublimates the skin.
Sorry, go ahead.
Pardon?
Go ahead. I was going to come on to that,
so that
from a point of view
sure.
of, I'll pop it down. From a point of view of some of the other pens I've seen on the market, some have focused heavily on things like warts, and they're not the same.
No, I mean the pens that aren't kind of made purposely for plasma, you know, they kind of have really high emissions, like radiated emissions, and they're very dangerous. So you can't control the amount of energy that's coming out of that pen, and a lot of people holding that on the skin and kind of letting it have a massive thermal reaction, which is causing you know, a massive amount of trauma and, you know, severe scarring to the skin potentially, because you can't control the emissions on those pens. They're not designed for skin tightening or skin rejuvenation.
I mean, in terms of microtrauma itself, plasma obviously creates that, but what happens when it's created? What's kind of, I suppose, the biological effect of it?
Sure. So basically, the skin itself is obviously the largest organ of the body, and there's tiny little fibroblasts within the dermis of the skin, and they're not that interesting. They're quite boring actually, but the role that they play is really, really important. So what they do is they produce other cells and create collagen and elastin. So they might look very uninteresting under a microscope, but the job that they do is incredibly interesting, and they create more and more of the, you know, collagen and elastin fibers, and to re-support and regenerate that matrix of the skin, to plump the skin up and tighten it.
Now, in terms of, I suppose, pens, because although obviously I know a lot about your brand, and it was one of the reasons that I've kind of signed up for training with you guys, it's more so about understanding, well, what are you buying and where to look for pens, and, you know, what you're looking for. So if somebody was out there looking for a pen, be it yours or anybody else's, what would you be checking for?
So the pen itself, as a kind of reseller of a pen or a manufacturer of a pen, I take the commitment on of having that pen exclusively to have meet the European Union guidelines and making it safe. So it's my responsibility to make sure that those pens are safe, they're emissions tested, they're coming in at a safe standard, the radiated emissions. Also, the pen itself needs to be high quality. It has to have the CE mark on it. It also has to meet with certain other criteria of conformity and CE standards. And every single pen should be traceable. So every pen should have a serial number, the website, or the address of the manufacturer, as it were, and that should be all you know, very prominent either on the pen or certainly in the packaging, and it should have the guide, and it also should conform to WE standards. That's the electrical kind of recycling model of the government, and every pen should have those marks on them to make sure that they are good quality, and the manufacturer has gone to the highest levels to make sure that pen is safe and in good quality for resale.
Now, from my limited knowledge, I suppose at the moment, plasma pen on a whole has lots of different variations in technique, isn't it? Where I've seen people kind of spraying the skin with it, and then some are kind of touching the skin, and I certainly know that's absolutely a no-go. Explain to us, there's a couple of different techniques. What are they? So
there's different, only a few different types of techniques essentially. So you have what they call a 5-point technique, which is like 4 dots and then 1 in the middle, and what that does, it creates the skin to have a grabbing sensation, so it's pulling the skin in and tightening it. There's other techniques which include border spotting, so you go around sort of the side of a wrinkle like a border and you dot, and then you incorporate your dice work of 5 to tighten that and make sure that that wrinkle is going to be pulled out. You don't go inside a wrinkle. And there's also the spray technique as well, and that can be used for skin rejuvenation, age spots removal, things like that. A bit of scar work can be used with the spray technique, and also stretch marks and things like that. And then you've got the combination style of techniques where you can do both, but we tend to steer away from the spray technique if we've used the dicing technique, because we don't want to create too much trauma to the skin. These pens are incredibly powerful, and we don't actually need to overwork the skin or create too much trauma or inflammation to get a really good result, you know. So there's different styles, and those are the sort of 3 we use.
In terms of wrinkles, because I suppose thankfully I've got Botox in the forehead, but normally I'd look like a short-haired dog without it. And I see a lot of people that tend to kind of work in the wrinkle, and that's a massive no-no, isn't it?
It's a definite no-no. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the skin plump and push that wrinkle out. So if we're working inside it, all we're going to do really is encourage kind of more kind of, you know, a caving effect of that wrinkle, rather than going to the sides and actually plumping the skin out.
Rather than improve the wrinkle?
I think it wouldn't benefit it at all, and it could potentially make it worse. So why would you want to take that risk when, if you're kind of trying to fill in the gap of plumping up the skin and letting the skin, you know, kind of regenerate itself, then that would push that wrinkle out.
So therefore, when you kind of, I suppose, mapping out the technique as such, I'm assuming spacing becomes quite important.
Yes. You don't want to have those dots too close together. Obviously, the skin's incredibly intelligent. You know, I'm really sort of quite hot on skin and skin intelligence. And, you know, the skin, the inflammatory response sends, you know, everything into those areas to heal the skin and make sure that, you know, it's going to be healing really well. You don't have to I see time and time again unsupervised or inexperienced technicians who are, we have people, you know, messaging our page all the time saying, oh my god, I had this plasma treatment, obviously not in lockdown, or hopefully not, and they are in so much pain. The dots are too close together, they're holding those probes on for too long, and they're just burning, blowtorching people's faces, and it takes them months and months to heal. And there's, you know, such a danger of permanent damage, hyperpigmentation, scarring. It really puts the industry into disrepute with that sort of technique. So we do space our dots out about 2 to 3 millimeters, because you've got that thermal skin reaction. You don't need to have them right next door to each other.
I mean, it was one of the things when I looked at coming into the industry initially, and, you know, I remember talking to quite a big player at the time, and they were almost willing to give you everything just to kind of get signed up. And it kind of, the journey of actually what I needed to learn was almost, oh, it's easy, anybody can do it. And then when I look back at pictures, it really isn't the case that it's easy and everybody can do it, because the technique and how light people are as well can be quite important, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, we've got some of the best trainers, and these ladies have been working with plasma for 4 years, and a lot of them are highly qualified in anatomy and physiology and skin intelligence. They study these subjects before they've even picked up a plasma pen, and they've worked really successfully in their own clinics, and they've got all of that experience years ago. And their techniques, I wanted to change the mold as far as plasma fibroblasting goes, and that's why we only kind of work with people who have our approach, very gentle, very light work, very quick work. You don't want your clients taking a week off work because they look like they can't go out of the house. I had a treatment done about 3 years ago somewhere, and I literally had to phone my colleague Alice and say to her, I can't come in. She said it can't be that bad, and I showed her a picture and I looked like something off of Avatar. It was shocking, and I couldn't show my clients that because they would never have the treatment. Nowadays, if I have a treatment when we're on training, I can go straight to work and nobody really even notices, and it's brilliant.
That knee you had, how long did it take to heal?
I think I was off work for a week, and it took me about 2 weeks for the swelling to kind of subside, and it didn't actually make any difference. I think it actually stretched the skin because of the trauma that was involved.
Yeah, because I think from a general public's point of view, it's always concerning, isn't it, when you see these things and a month later the dots are still there, or months later in many cases.
Yeah.
Now, treatment areas, there's lots of different areas I know it can be kind of treated. The quite obvious one is usually around the eyes and the cheeks and things like that. What other areas are typically seen?
Say that again, sorry, I just got interrupted.
What other areas do you typically cover? So I know about obviously around the eye area,
Yeah.
foreheads. What else do you cover in terms of training?
Okay, so we do the perioral lines, which are above here, the smoker's lines. That's brilliant for that. I mean, I do aesthetics, as you know, and have been for the last 4 years. The perioral lines here, back in the day, everyone used to use fillers to linear thread thin fillers into that area, but you've got the kind of the problem of that filler getting hard and migrating, and they end up with that sort of monkey mask above their lip. So the perioral lines are fantastic for plasma fibroblasting. Also nasal labial marionette lines, accordion lines, all of that. We have jowl lift, neck lift. A good friend of mine, Natalia Cox, I think she's watching. Hi, Natalia. She's been very successful and done clients for breast tissue lift as well.
Really?
Yeah. Anything loose skin, plasma's brilliant for. Around the neck, which I need another session. So any loose skin, any skin tightening, that sort of thing, it is fantastic for.
So if you're talking about clients that have had a lot of weight loss, and I suppose everybody goes through cycles, don't they, where get fat over Christmas or lockdown in many cases nowadays. And then come January, that's it, you hit it. And you've always got this clientele that I certainly get mixed in, where I'm doing skin needling. So I'll mix my kind of fat dissolving and skin needling January. And then by the time I get in kind of to March onwards, I skin needle them continuously, just the time. If you put these side by side, is it as effective, or in some case more effective?
I think plasma is brilliant for loose skin. You could do plasma and you can combine that with microneedling. You can do plasma. If they've got like fat pockets, which is fat, then obviously acrylics or fat dissolving injections, that sort of thing. You can have plasma and biorevitalization, that sort of thing. You can have plasma and microneedling or peels. It works really well in conjunction with other treatments. But plasma is brilliant for loose skin. Anything that you can pinch and it stays there, amazing.
I'm not being rude, I'm letting somebody in the group, or trying to let somebody in the group. So in terms of skin conditions, there's got to be certain skin conditions I'd imagine it's really, really good for. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So skin conditions, what skin conditions can you treat with plasma?
Okay.
Can you do rosacea or
no? We steer clear of kind of things like rosacea and melasma and things like that. We really concentrate on conditions such as kind of crepey skin, loose skin, things like that. What else was I going to say to you now? Completely gone out of my head. Anything loose skin, anything wrinkly, crepey that you can pinch, it's really good for that. I'm just trying to think, sorry, I've completely lost my thread. With hyperpigmentation, you can treat it with the spray technique, but you have to be careful because obviously some people produce quite a lot of melanin in certain Fitzpatrick types, so you have to kind of avoid sort of heat treatments in that respect, and I would kind of look more towards chemical peels and things like that, especially for quite severe hyperpigmentation.
Which is going to lead me on to my next question. I suppose my clientele, where we all leave Bradford, where I've got a huge Indian, Pakistan kind of clientele. So for them, it's always a case of what can we do? We do absolutely loads of treatments, skin needling, which is really, really effective, chemical peel. This in itself, would this be kind of any good for that, or would you kind of stay clear once you get higher up the Fitzpatrick scale?
Yeah, so obviously with plasma, what we don't want to do is cause hyperpigmentation damage to the skin. So we really need to assess our clients and make sure that they're a really good candidate and we can meet their expectations. So client selection is absolutely paramount. So we do have a consultation form where we ask them to check through a series of questions and then find out their scoring. Now, if they're scoring like above a 3, we would probably recommend other treatments for them, and that would involve things like microneedling and chemical skin peels, because the last thing we want to do is create any hyperpigmentation and have them walking around with dots on their faces, things like that. So plasma is really good for 1 to 3 skin Fitzpatrick scoring, as it were.
Would you use kind of, because I suppose when I've done laser training, and although you use kind of a questionnaire to determine what people are, I always use a little machine as well, and I kind of stick it on the skin so it'll pick up what's Fitzpatrick. Do you tend to do that in different areas? Because I suppose areas you might be.
You can have those gadgets that you can buy and you can use, but sometimes they don't read the skin properly. So I would definitely be looking at a kind of Fitzpatrick questionnaire, because, like, for instance, my heritage is not English. You know, I'm Indian, Portuguese, South African, and all the rest of it. So I've got like a higher scoring of like 3 on the Fitzpatrick scale. So I can't actually have plasma treatments on my face apart from my eyes, because I do protect my eyes and I do use SPF and things like that. But I remember once, and I had plasma done around my earlobes, and then I went on a sunbed, as you do, and I had dots there for about 6 months. So you have to be really kind of mindful of people's heritage and where they actually come from. So I might not look like I score highly on the Fitzpatrick score just to look at my skin and I've got light eyes and all the rest of it. But actually, when you look back into my history and through my Fitzpatrick, then you will see that I could potentially have hyperpigmentation from plasma.
So like everything, I suppose, across aesthetics, it's that consultation period that's probably key, isn't it? More important than anything else.
It's essential, and you need to be explaining to your clients if it's going to meet their needs. That, I mean, we're not going to promise to magic everyone's wrinkles away, but we can certainly kind of give them a holistic kind of treatment plan as to what they can ascertain with plasma fibroblasting. And the results are exceptional. You know, we've got the best technicians that work with us on our pen, and they just have incredible results, and they're not doctored pictures, they're real results from real clients.
Oh, 100%. I think, you know, as part of, other than obviously knowing you anyway through PMU, part of kind of approaching you to do the module for us was exactly that. The work's incredible. You know, if you look at it, loads of people across the industry, the work's average. Some of it seems heavily scarred at times, really, really dark dots. Yours super, super light. And I think I see a bit on your profile, a bit on Alice Kingdoms. Who else trains for you?
So we've got Krista O'Neill. We travel obviously internationally with our plasma pen. We get invited to conferences on a global platform. We've been out to Vietnam to talk. So there's Alice Kingdom, there's Cheryl Booth, Natalia Cox, myself, obviously. Who else have we got on board? Lisa Coleman in London as well. And there's lots of other students that are coming right up in the ranks, like Cara Ball. She's doing fantastically well. Stacia does great work. There's quite a lot of people on the live tonight that have just do exceptional work. And a lot of people that do our courses, they actually pay the course off within 3 months because they're so busy with plasma, and it kind of overtakes their lower cost treatments, as it were.
I think in terms of courses and when you're purchasing something, I always look at it as to how many treatments do I need to do to then have a return on investment. And what would it be for you guys? What would you say your average treatment is, or your average price point, and how many would you need then to see return?
Okay, so our course essentially is 2,500 plus VAT, and that includes the pen and the kit and everything to get you going. We also give you everything that you need to do to get that, get those treatments going. So, for instance, for an upper and lower blepharoplasty, you're looking at about £400. Cost to you would be the numbing, obviously insurance, things like that, the probe. So you're probably looking at about £10–15 for that treatment, if as a maximum.
Yeah, so
and
that 10–15 quid
is
not bad. Now, if anybody else has obviously got any questions while we're on here, I've seen some bits coming up. Kaylee Joyce is asking, what is the best pen? Because she missed the start. Teresa's going to say hers, obviously. So, pen-wise, can you give me advice?
I think with our pen, because obviously it's been tested to the highest standards, that goes through a 3 quality testing process before it's launched. The pens are made in Germany, and we've got German conformity. The probes, the pen itself, the probes that you drop into the cartridge of the pen